What's going on, ladies, gents, and kids of all ages? It is Eric coming back at you once again from the Nerd Cave, and today I am here for a deck breakdown video. We're going to look at my Ruby Amethyst build where I run no legendaries by choice. I have the legendaries, I could run them, I choose not to. I honestly think this build is a lot better, and frankly, after talking about some of my tech in the deck, I'm seeing things placing top 8 in big tournaments, so not saying that I came up with it, just saying great minds think alike, and I do have some other tech ideas that I'm not seeing, so stick around to see what those are. So we're going to start out first in the 1-drop slot, where we have some tried and true cards that I'm not going to spend too much time talking about, because anybody who's been playing this game for a while knows why they're good in Ruby Amethyst, and those are Olaf and Minnie Mouse. Always great cards. 1/3s can kind of give your opponent a hard time in the early game. There are a lot of answers to these cards now, but they're essentially the same card, just two different arts. One's a Minnie Mouse, one's an Olaf. They're also great targets for Teeth and Ambitions, which you'll see in this deck in our 2-drop slot. Changing the 1-drop meta in this deck quite a bit, and changing the kind of tempo you can have with the Ruby Amethyst in the beginning of the game is Rafiki. Amazing card, very similar to Captain Hook. If you have the choice in Steel, Amethyst to play one or the other, some people would say play both. Definitely say play Captain Hook. Don't worry about Rafiki. Captain Hook is, for all intents and purposes, just a better version of Rafiki, but the difference here is obviously Ruby Amethyst didn't have access to Captain Hook, so getting Rafiki is huge. Because we are all in on Teeth and Ambitions, we do keep 5 1-drops, being the Minnie Mouse and the Olaf. So we do run 4 Teeth and Ambitions in the deck. Not only are these a great target in the early game for things like Minnie Mouse and Olaf to be able to do 2 damage to your opponent's early drops like Robin Hood, Cinderella, really most of the shift targets you're going to be able to take out with Teeth and Ambitions. The other big part of Teeth and Ambitions in this deck we'll talk about when we hit the 4-drop slot. So next up in 2-drops, we do have a mainstay in Ruby Amethyst, and that is 4 Madam Mim Snakes. Fantastic card. Not only can it bounce those 1-drops back to your hand if you want to keep them protected for additional questing or heal damage that's been done to them already, but it does combo quite well with the next card in the 2-drop slot, which is going to be this Pinocchio Talkative Puppet. He can come out and boom, tap down one of your opponent's creatures when they don't expect it, exert one of your opponent's creatures when they don't expect it. Fantastic with things like Madam Mim Fox, where you could bounce it back again, do it again. Also, it's fantastic with Rafiki, because now you have a lot more tempo control with Ruby Amethyst than you ever did before. You can go turn 1 Rafiki, turn 2 Pinocchio, take out anything with 3 willpower or less. Just a great way to start the game, very tempo oriented, so definitely love Pinocchio. And to keep that tempo on, moving on to the 3-drop slots, we do have the Stylish Surfer Minnie Mouse. Again, can't say enough good things about this card. There are more people playing outs to it than ever before, so you may see it come down and get wiped out right away if you're playing a deck with a lot of outs for it. The fantastic thing about Minnie Mouse Surfer is she is inkable, so she's not good in that particular game. She goes in the inkwell. You're seeing people start to play less than 4. I still like 4 in the deck. She comes down. If you get 2 on board against somebody who can't handle it, she just wins you games. Like, she's just very good. Grab Your Swords doesn't deal with her. And then next in the 3-drop slot, we do have 2 Merlin Crabs. These pair fantastically with the Merlin Fox. With the Mim Fox, because you can play Mim Fox, you can bounce Crab back to your hand. That Mim Fox becomes a 7/3 and can take out most locations and things like that. The Crab is also great with Minnie Mouse Stylish Surfer in the mirror match, where somebody else is running Minnie Mouse Stylish Surfer. You can drop a Crab, boost your Surfer up, kill their Surfer with your Surfer, or other evasive threats. So that's kind of why he exists in the deck currently. Some people would say Maui's Fishhook replaced him, but currently we're doing a 2-2 thing, and I think both cards are great. Then we do have 4 Madam Mim Fox. I already talked about this card a little bit, but she's just fantastic. Comes down, bounces something else to your hand, so you could target something like the Crab, you could target something like Rafiki to protect it, you could get your Talkative Puppet back in your hand. Turn 5, you're looking at, if you have a Talkative Puppet Pinocchio on the board, you can throw down Madam Mim, bounce it to your hand, play it again, exert one of their characters, and then Madam Mim Fox into it to kill it potentially if it does have 4 willpower or less. Madam Mim Fox, MVP in this deck. Then we do have a card I don't think anybody will be surprised to see in Ruby Amethyst, and that is Friends on the Other Side. We do run 4 of them in this deck because I think in Amethyst you just run 4 of those, especially if you're playing enough 3-drops to sing them, or something like Cinderella, which obviously we're not playing Amber, but if we were, Cinderella's a great choice. Then we do have Maui's Fishhook. This card needs no introduction, I think, at this point. It's one of those cards that came out and everybody was like, oh, that's a card. Didn't really think much of it, but if you have a character named Maui in play, you may use this item's Shapeshift ability for free. So you still have to exert it, but you don't have to pay the 2, and then you choose one. Chosen character gains evasive until the start of your next turn, or chosen character gets +3 attack. So with Maui, you can exert it for free when Maui's on the board, and you can make Maui attack for 9, effectively outing every character in the game that's relevant, except for Goofy. Nobody plays Goofy. Also, it's evasive until your next turn, so you can prevent them from attacking into you if that's relevant and getting those last lore points. Then we do have Merlin Goat, another card that is extremely relevant in getting those last lore points. 4/3 for 4. When it comes into play, you get a lore. When it leaves play, you get a lore. Obviously great with the minimum bounce package. Great defense against things like Be Prepared or other board wipes, because you're going to get the lore when it's leaving. Kind of same deal with Merlin Rabbit. As you can see, when he comes into play, you draw a card. When he leaves play, you draw a card. Great with the mims, great protection for board wipes, because people do not want you to draw more cards. Then we do have 2 Prince Eric. This is one of my main cards that's seeing some play in Ruby Amethyst, but isn't seeing play in a lot of the top 8 meta from what I've seen. This card is fantastic. You can go totally away from Teeth and Ambitions and probably don't want to run this card, but if you're still playing a Ruby Amethyst build where you want to have Teeth and Ambitions in there, you're in a meta where people are playing a lot of shift targets, people are playing Cinderella, people are playing Pluto, stuff like that, you want to get it off the board. I think that Prince Eric is a great choice. He comes down early, so Teeth and Ambitions can deal with those early in the game. Prince Eric can deal with those kind of mid-range threats, and then you run into some of your bigger cards to deal with the late game threats. But the great thing about Prince Eric and Teeth and Ambitions, if you're not catching on, is that you can play Prince Eric for 4 if you have a 2-cost character on the board, or a character with Sing or 2 plus, you know what I mean. You can sing Teeth and Ambitions, deal 2 to Prince Eric, deal 2 to one of their characters, possibly killing it, and then when Prince Eric is banished, you can choose and banish another one of their characters. He is also a quester for 2, so if you're in a position you just want to quest and put the pressure on and leave it up to them to attack into him and then banish one of their characters, that's also a very relevant option with that card. Next in the 4-drop slots, a card we're kind of testing out. I have enjoyed it. It does have some practical use. Locations can be very troublesome for people who don't play high attack characters, high strength characters. So these 2 are really good. People would probably tell you have to play Jim Hawkins. If you're going to play the Jim Hawkins build, I say go 4 Jim Hawkins, 4 Queen's Castle, and like really go in on it. I went 2 Queen's Castle. I'm not running Jim Hawkins in this deck, but it is a 4-cost location, 7 willpower, 1 to move there, and whenever there's a character there at the start of your turn, you draw a card for each character there. Can be great. It does also gain you 2 passive lore at the beginning of each turn, so if you're coming off of something like a Be Prepared, this is a great next card to put into play when there's not a kind of filled up board. Then obviously one of my MVPs for Ruby Amethyst, another card I don't think people always play 4 of, but I think is just like an absolute 4 of in this deck. It's going to be Maui, Hero to All. He has Rush, he's a 6/5. Yes, he has Reckless, which can hurt you if your opponent causes you to attack into something you don't want to necessarily attack into, but really you're bringing him down to out 1 threat, and as long as he's outing that major threat for you, he's kind of done his job. So if he does anything else beyond that, he's just really getting that extra value. He can also be given evasive with the Fishhook, which can prevent them from attacking into him if you need to out another threat. And then you have things like the Queen's Castle. You could move him to Queen's Castle, leave him ready, and just kind of draw cards passively until they deal with your castle. So he's a really interesting card. I think he's going to be a mainstay in Lorcana in the long term unless they change formats. But yeah, Maui, can't say enough good things about him. Definitely a card you should be on the lookout for. Then moving on to the 6-drop slots and kind of winding down the end of the slots in this deck, we do have Lady Tremaine. A lot of people are saying Madame Medusa is the way to go right now. maybe that's true. Madame Medusa is good. She does target. She does have 4 attacks, so she can't be killed by another Medusa, which is interesting. But she also can't kill Jim Hawkins. She can't kill Jafar. She can deal with the Ursula, but if they're playing that Ursula deck, a lot of those characters are fairly low willpower. So if you're playing this deck effectively, you've controlled tempo enough, they're not going to have a lot of characters on the board. So you can still kind of have some say over what they're getting rid of with Lady Tremaine, even though you can't target things. And just as a kind of backup for that, since I'm not running Madame Medusa in this deck, I did also think it was prevalent to run 2 Yzmas. Terrible foiling on this card, but she is a 4/4, so she does stay out of the line of sight of Madame Medusa, and she does shuffle a character in, so you can target with it, and it lets them draw 2 cards. But when you're in the later stages of the game and you have pretty solid board control, letting them draw 2 cards could be okay. And if you're not at that point in the game, sometimes she's nice to slap down, get one of your own characters off the board, and draw 2 cards if you really need them. So Yzma can have a lot of technical usefulness. And the last card we play, I'm sure this will come as no surprise to anybody, we do run 3 Be Prepareds in this deck. I think the biggest surprise with 3 Be Prepareds is most people probably just assume that you're going to run 4 Be Prepareds because that's the right choice. This deck is very character quest heavy. So 4 Be Prepared just isn't relevant. It's a little lower to the ground than most Ruby Amethyst decks, so getting to 7 is not always your main focus, so I didn't want to go as hard on Be Prepared. Sometimes you just want to get those guys on the board and go in. This deck does only run, I believe, 14 uninkables. I'll throw it on screen if I'm wrong. And the total value of the deck we'll throw on screen along with a screenshot of the entire deck list. I know that was something people asked for in the comments on the last deck tips video, but if you're enjoying the box breaks and the deck tips, your comments and likes are greatly appreciated. It does help us to get promoted to others who may enjoy this. If you're enjoying a lot, definitely subscribe below. We're on our way to 500 subscribers, and when we get there, we're going to be doing a big giveaway, so definitely stay tuned for that, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more information. But as always, I'm Eric. This is the Nerd Cave. This is Lorcana, budget, Ruby Amethyst, no legendaries, my deck list. Love this deck list. It's a lot of fun, honestly. Tell me what your thoughts are on it. If there's cards you would play differently, or cards you wouldn't run at all, cards you would play instead. Do you think Madame Medusa is better than Lady Tremaine? I don't know if I can get behind that logic, but drop your comments below. Thank you as always for sticking around. Remember, when you see toys, video games, and awesome Ruby Amethyst Lorcana decks with no legendaries off in the distance, it is not a mirage. You guys have a great day.